Could the Niners bring him in just as a guy with a good veteran presence in the locker room? Could you look at that? Would that change your opinion at all as far as what he could fit, how he could fit into this locker room?
Yeah, you're always looking for good veteran presence, but typically, if you're going to go get those guys, the hold the fort type guys, the teacher type guys, they're usually your guys. They're usually guys that you have a history with that you know are going to not only play that role, but play that role very well and support the program, the coaching staff. Bill Parcells always had hold the fort guys, and they have a value.
But Dez is not supposed to be at that part of his career. Brandon Marshall's going into year 13. Like when we talk about him and the money he took and a veteran leader. Dez is going into year 9. Dez is, I understand year 9 by NFL standards, that's older. But as a wide receiver, that could be the tail end of your prime, right? Like your prime would be year 6 to year 9, theoretically, as a wide receiver. I know your career arc was different than most, but I think for most wide receivers, you look at a guy like Julio. He's in the heart of the prime of his career. Julio's, I think, one draft class younger than Dez Bryant. He's not supposed to be there as, even if he didn't have the other stuff. This locker room guy, he's supposed to be there as a productive player, as a guy who can be potentially a number 1 wide receiver. And the only thing that I can think of at this point is his price point must be exorbitant for no team to have publicly gone after him other than Baltimore, and that was on the 3-year deal.
Yeah, I don't think the 49ers are making a mistake because they don't bring Dez Bryant in. Now, I think on paper, looking at wide receivers, looking at guys they have, who can be a number 1, who can be a number 2. They don't have a number 2. Now, they can believe in Goodwin as much. They rewarded him with a contract this offseason. He was more productive there than he was in Buffalo. But he's a speed guy. All right, he's a track guy, has blazing speed, and we just don't see guys like that in the NFL be very, very successful. We don't see them being able to be dependable week in and week out. They get knocked around with the physicality. And just because there's a physical receiver, I don't believe they're making a mistake. If you're trying to run an offense that I believe that Kyle Shanahan is running, you have to have guys who are smart, guys who can play several positions, guys that bring more roster value compared to every team doesn't need locker room guys. Like we always have the question, hey, man, is this guy a good locker room guy? You know what we need? We need some good freaking football players. I'll worry about the locker room stuff later on. Is he good enough to be able to take the chance at this point in his career? The 49ers don't feel comfortable enough about that. So I don't feel like they're making a mistake.
And the other thing with this time of year is you're figuring out what you have. You have draft picks, you have free agents. There's a lot of things that you brought into your organization that you're looking at through the course of OTAs. Now, when you come out of OTAs, if you feel like you have a big deficiency in one area, then that's where you start talking about, okay, who can we go get to help upgrade this position? But at this time of year, the optimism is high, the growth potential is high, so you're not really making that move for a guy like him till probably camp.
Does it surprise you at all that he's on no one's short list at all in the entire league? Like, where does a guy like this end up?
Well,
now?
we don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know if he's on someone's short list.
Well, if you're saying that you're waiting to the end of OTAs, waiting to see how your drafts work out, waiting to see what you have.
I think to Jenna's point, no one is
worried that someone else is going to get him.
That it's like, man, we got to get him now
before
someone else
gets him.
Well, we don't know if people have talked to his representatives, and he's probably on everybody's short list because he's probably the next best guy that you can go get. But you're not at the short list point at this time. And why would you talk about a guy unless you felt like you were going to get him? It just disrupts the chemistry in-house. I think when you make that move, you want to know that you can make it. You'd make it definitively. You bring him in as opposed to talking about it.
And he's no Pro Bowl player. I mean, if he's not on the Dallas Cowboys, are we talking about him this much? Like, we act like, oh, man, the 49ers, man, they're crazy. Oh, not signing Dez Bryant. They don't have any receiver. Dez Bryant hadn't done it. We can't say, oh, man, the guy hadn't performed the last 3 years and been like, well, why hadn't anybody signed him? Well, the lack of productivity, that's the reason why he's not signed.
So here's my question to you, C, because when he got cut, and you've been consistent on this, you thought for Dez's purposes.
Oh, that was that day you was telling Dez to hold out because you had the position on the organization.
No. That was the day before he got cut was the day I was saying he shouldn't take a pay cut because he has the leverage. It would appear I overestimated Dez's leverage. coverage. It was maybe bad advice by me that I gave to Dez and his agents at Rock Nation. My apologies. However, since he's been cut, the team that you circled that you thought for Dez's purposes would be a good fit is San Francisco. Because of their lack of receivers, because of the quarterback that they have, is the real issue there what you talked about and what you alluded to, which is the complexity of the offense? How difficult that offense is for quarterbacks to learn in a year, how much shifting and movement, and Dez's limitations in that area.
It's one reason why New England is very selective and they do their due diligence as far as who they're going to bring into their system. We thought a number of years ago, perfect match, Chad Johnson with Tom Brady. Not so much. Like what they require you to do, the amount of information they make you retain. Most teams don't have the wide receivers, remember, let alone 3 positions, 2 positions. So when you don't have that flexibility and you don't have that, what you're trying to teach to your wide receivers week in and week out, and Kyle Shanahan is doing that, all right? I can make bodies fit, but I can't make players fit into a system. They're doing a good thing. You know what they did? They didn't, so they haven't made a mistake. So they might get through the OTAs and realize we need some more help. But it's important. You have to respect what Matty Ice has said. You know something, man, this system in year number 2, one of the smartest quarterbacks. We worked with Matty Ice at another place that I've worked. Very, very bright. When he says that, man, I struggled a little bit with the verbiage, with the terminology. You have to respect that. And Dez Bryant has not been known to be the strong part of his game. So I respect Kyle Shanahan and what he's trying to do, and they haven't made a mistake. Lynch has done a good job as far as putting talent on that roster.
And you're always limited by your hardest learner. And either as a defensive coordinator or offensive coordinator, if you want to have variety, if you want to be multiple, if you want to truly be game plan specific, if you have to account for one player who can't do those things, it's a huge limiting factor. And that's the last thing you want to go into a situation with. You want to be able to have options as opposed to, okay, how are we going to accommodate this one player? Now, if the player is really, really good.
You need ridiculous talent.
Yeah, you need ridiculous talent if I'm going to limit the scheme for you.
And that's how we started Randy Moss on. The talent was ridiculous. You got 3 routes you're going to run, and then we realized he was a football savant. We was like, hey, man, you can come run the X. Hey, Randy, you can run the H, run the pump in the middle. But there's very, very few players that have that type of football IQ.
And while Dez doesn't have that IQ, when you're talking about the talent, he was that guy talent-wise. I don't think he's gotten less intelligent than he was 3 years ago.
That's why he got the contract. He was rewarded with that huge contract.
Absolutely right. He was able to do that with his physicality.
You said you're limited by your
hardest learner. I like that phrase.
Yeah.
It's better than weakest link phraseology. I like that.
Yeah.
Hard learner. He's a hard learner.
Oh, that's... You got water in your ear, Jenna?
Love you, Nick. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.